Good evening, everybody. Sorry I'm late. Had to get off the train. Had to get in. Had to get into the place, get settled. Bring you guys the news on Soulja Boy's trial. See how much the YouTube algorithm is screwing me today. Looks like pretty bad, huh? What's everybody doing? Let me know you're here. Send me a comment. Say what's up. I hope you guys all saw the story on legalaffairsandtrials.com. That's where I put all my energy into doing a written work on this. Check this out. Go to legalaffairsandtrials.com. You will see the story. Here it is. Soulja Boy on trial. We had closing arguments today, and the jury is going to start deliberating tomorrow. They did not start deliberating today, but it's been a long trial. I mean, with jury selection, I think we're at about almost 4 weeks now. Opening statements were March 13th, so the jury has been sitting through this for sure. And I was hearing last week from court staff that the jury was getting restless, and the judge was a little worried that they weren't going to be finishing on time. I guess he'd originally told him they were going to be done on April 2nd. That obviously didn't happen. But he is on trial in a lawsuit for civil claims of unlawful imprisonment, sexual battery, assault, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and hostile work environment. And some of the claims were dropped, but those are the claims that are going to go to the jury tomorrow. And I didn't hear a specific damages amount, but they were talking in the millions of dollars. The woman's lawyer was going over some specific amounts, like per day, per second, the suffering that she's felt for this. And it's hard. It's always hard to say either way which way it's going to go. But some of the evidence that I've seen, I mean, the biggest thing that I saw over the trial was the photos that she texted to other people while she was living with him. It was photos of her bruises, and she's complaining about him assaulting her. And she texted these to Soulja Boy's manager. This is the woman who's suing him. And when I just saw the photos originally during her testimony, and they were being put up on the screen, and the text messages that she was sending, it seemed like bad evidence for him. I was like, this seems like pretty well. I mean, you could say that it corroborates her claims. I mean, it's just kind of hard to see how they would kind of try to dispute that. I mean, are they going to say that she caused these bruises herself? But what they did was, when my story gets into this on legalaffairsandtrials.com, I'll link it in the chat. They called Miami Mike. This is Soulja Boy's lawyers actually called Mike, who discovered Soulja Boy when Soulja Boy was like 14. Mike was 31, 32. They're both in Mississippi. And so Mike's been with him for a really long time. And the woman was testifying that she actually called Mike on the phone and said that she had photos and that Soulja Boy had been assaulting her, and she wanted it to stop. So she testified that he knew she was going to send him these photos. So Soulja Boy's lawyers actually called Mike as a defense witness, and then actually entered his own text message response as a defense exhibit. And it was one of those things where it's just in the eye of the beholder, but I didn't see it as being a very defensive exhibit, because his response when she sends him these messages of her bruises, he responds, that is insane. Wow, that is insane. I'm so sorry this happened to you. And it's seems like, well, so what happened to her? I mean, it's just seemed like corroborating, kind of corroborates her story here. But the defense called Mike up on the stand to just have him refute that and say that he never heard that Soulja Boy had assaulted her, and he thought that the bruises were from another fight, like she'd gotten a fight with another woman. I guess in February 2019, there was a big altercation at Soulja Boy's house, and Kayla Myers, who successfully sued him a couple years ago, got a $475,000 jury verdict. She and the woman who's suing now were fighting. So that fight has been discussed during the trial, and Soulja's lawyers, or Miami Mike in his testimony, said that he thought these bruises that he saw were from a fight with another girl that she'd gotten into. And the woman's lawyers brought up the fact that these photos this was in August 2020 when she sent these photos, and the fight was in February 2019. So the lawyer was kind of asking him incredulously, about, you can agree that bruises from February 2019 wouldn't show up in photos wouldn't still be visible in 2020, right? Just trying to show that Mike was lying on the stand, and that he did know that the woman was saying that Soulja Boy had caused these bruises. So, I mean, it's always just in the eyes of the beholder, but I didn't think Mike was a very good defense witness for the defense. I mean, he didn't really have any kind of believable explanation about what he actually thought these were, and he was refuting testimony from the woman that actually seemed pretty strong. So I'm not sure if that really helped him very much. But again, my story on legalaffairsandtrials.com gets into this, but he said she was talking to me, but she never did break it down. She never did tell me that Soulja hit her, testified Sykes. And he said, I got 5 sisters. If she had told me that, I would have definitely got on him. You know what I'm saying? And that's Mike right there. I saw him outside the courthouse and told him I wanted to get a photo. So he stopped and posed. This was last week. His testimony was probably only 30-40 minutes total. It was split up by a lunch break, but after lunch, it was only like 5 minutes of testimony. But I thought the cross was stronger than the direct exam, because he really didn't have any explanation for the photos or the bruises other than just I was never told this was about Soulja. And that just didn't seem very believable. And I thought the cross kind of brought that out pretty well. But, you never know. There's a lot of stuff in this trial, and there's a lot of stuff for the jury to consider. I mean, it's like, how do you put a dollar amount on this kind of thing? So, Demetrio, hello. Thanks for saying hi. I'm trying to get back into the algorithm here. YouTube's been punishing me. I've got to get back into the juice here. But thanks for saying hi. We're updating people on a civil case I'm covering in Santa Monica. It's Los Angeles County Superior Court, and they've got a branch courthouse out in Santa Monica. So this is in Santa Monica because Soulja Boy lived in Malibu, and I think it has to do with the location on that. And it's actually the same judge who's hearing the Jay-Z Tony Busby lawsuit. And I think that goes with, because Jay-Z, I think, lives in Malibu and in that area. So it's the Santa Monica courthouse that kind of gets those cases when they're filed. So the judge is going to be hearing the Jay-Z stuff tomorrow while the jury in Soulja Boy's trial is deliberating. He's been pretty busy, but again, the defense really, or the plaintiff's lawyer, the woman's lawyer for the accuser, really jumped on this text message response from Miami Mike in cross-examination. Because remember, the text message response was, "Wow, that is insane. I'm so sorry this happened to you." And Dean of West Coast trial lawyers was like, "What were you referring to when you say I'm so sorry this happened?" Sykes says, "The bruises and stuff." And he says, "After you said, 'I'm so sorry this happened,' were you curious as to what happened?" And remember, this is all the lawyer just trying to show the jury that they can't believe Sykes, that Sykes is like currently lying, and he knows full well what the bruises were about. And he's just trying to cover up for Soulja Boy. So it's, in the eyes of the beholder about whether that came across, but I didn't think it was the best defense witness, but we'll see. But the lawyer pointed out that Sykes saw the photos in August 2020, and the fight he referred to occurred in February 2019. Where Sykes answered, "I was curious a little, but in my mind, I was just thinking it was from the fight with the girl." So the lawyer says, "Would you agree with me that a human would not have bruises on them from February 2019 in August of 2020? And he says, "I will agree with that. Yeah." And so this, if you guys follow me on Twitter or X, this is when he started testifying about Meghann Thee Stallion. And this was in the Soulja Boy's lawyers were asking him about other things in the text messages. And he says something to the woman about Meghann. And so Soulja Boy's lawyer was like, "Who is Meghann?" And he's like, oh, she's one of the most famous, successful rappers in the world right now. And he was saying, everybody knows she has a crush on Soulja. So I was talking to her, the accuser, because the accuser at the time was living with Soulja Boy and was like working with him on stuff. And Mike was saying he was talking to her about how they should do a song together. So it did kind of come across to me. I don't know how it came across to the jury, but it was pretty obvious they were just trying to find other things in the text messages to talk about, to try to distract from the photos and act like these photos weren't about Soulja Boy or anything like that. And so on cross, the woman's lawyer was like, so are you trying to say that these bruises are from a fight between her and Megan Thee Stallion? And he said, no, that's not what he's trying to say. So it just didn't come across very, very well for the defense. I mean, there's really no disputing the photos. Like, the photos seem authentic. They were talking today in closing argument about how we don't know when those were taken or what time stamp came in. But I think I don't think there's really much of a dispute or a realistic dispute about their authenticity. So the photos seem like bad evidence for them. But again, it's always a question of how are the jurors going to get together on this, and then how do you put a dollar amount on this too? I think it'll be hard for them to come out with a dollar amount, but they could. We'll see what they come up with. But one thing that was interesting was just this woman's connections in the rap world. She'd worked for Molly Mall. She worked for Little Twist for 8 years and Trippie Redd. And this was all before she started working for Soulja Boy. And after she left Soulja Boy, she actually left Soulja Boy's house and moved into another rapper's house, Smoke Perp, I guess is his name. I looked him up on Instagram. He has 4 million followers. But she has, it's like, wow, you have a lot of connections to rappers. And Viola, you say, is he? No, he's not facing jail time. He's not charged with a crime. So it's just a lawsuit for compensation. So the woman's lawyers were talking about how he actually has a tour scheduled and coming up, and how, he's going to be able to go on to that tour. But the lawyer was really trying to be mad, act like he's really upset about the lack of accountability that Soulja Boy has shown, and the denying that they're doing for, just saying that this was consensual and that he never attacked the woman and never did anything she didn't want to do. It's just, it's hard to say. But like I said, the biggest problem, the thing that refutes that, her testimony refutes it. I thought she was good on the witness stand from what I saw. I didn't see all of it in the very beginning, but to me, the photos were his biggest problem. It's just like, especially in the very beginning when I just started watching the trial, just going in there and didn't really know anything about the case and hadn't been tracking the testimony. But when they started showing those photos, it's like, okay, I don't think these photos are good for him. And then they kind of come out with the Miami Mike testimony that does not offer any kind of real explanation or anything. It's like, okay, this is not looking good. But again, it's not a criminal case. There's no jail time. So it's just a monetary damages figure if they do find him liable. And it's like, how do you put a dollar amount on that? And then, what kind of punishment is that actually when you have money like Soulja Boy does? Or I'm sure he gets royalties. He must get a lot of royalties for that Crank That song, because they play that everywhere. All the sporting events that they play that, he must get, I don't know, just royalties on that are probably more than a lot of people's yearly salary, just regular people, But part of it was the defense on this, because they're focusing on the other rappers that she worked with. But I guess for Little Twist, she made like $200 a week. But his lawyers were trying to say that the story is that in the beginning, she was not hired as a personal assistant. She was just strictly a marijuana blunt roller for a couple of months. And then Soulja Boy went to jail on a gun violation, for a probation violation related to a gun. This was in 2019, and he was in jail for a few months, and they talked a lot over the phone. And and his story is, his defense is that they started having feelings for each other, and it was an intimate relationship. So after he got out of jail, he invited her to move into his Bell Canyon home with him, and it wasn't like a personal assistant or work relationship. And her story is, and also he says that he hired her as a blunt roller, but he never agreed to pay her $500 a week, that it was just free room and board. So his lawyers were trying to show that that was actually really standard in the industry, that for a lot of these rappers and these relationships with rappers like Molly Mall, it was just free room and board to like hang out with these rappers and be their assistants. So I thought it was interesting to hear about that. But of course, her story is that there was a contract. There was a verbal contract. I think there was originally a breach of contract claim in here, but that's been thrown out. But that she only got paid for the first month, and then he started using money to manipulate her going forward. And his story is that it was like, I mean, he doesn't quite say it was his girlfriend, but that they had like a romantic relationship, and that it wasn't any kind of assistant thing. But she's saying that this kind of enslavement and unlawful imprisonment thing happened before he went to jail, and then really continued afterward for like a year and a half or so. But it's been a lot to listen to. I mean, and they acknowledged, like her lawyer was saying today, you know, we own the fact that this was a toxic relationship. I mean, they're not trying to say that she was just strictly like a slave locked away at all times. Like, she testified that she did have consensual sex with him at times. Like, there was, and I've seen a lot of text messages, you know, where she's kind of getting on him about hanging out with different women. So in some ways it does kind of come across as, you know, maybe it's just your not typical, but a toxic relationship with, you know, jealous people kind of snarking back and forth. But she's alleging that just the employment agreement that happened, and then she's alleging that she'd be locked in her room at times, and that she suffered all sorts of beatings and stuff over the course of 2 years. So the lawyer's point this morning was that they've owned the fact that this was a toxic relationship, but Soulja Boy hasn't owned that at all. I mean, he's just said that this was a good relationship, that he never did anything bad to her, and that he never, when he was calling her a bitch and stuff in text messages, that's just, you know, how they talk, and that's rap vernacular, and he calls all his friends bitches. So they were saying that the woman's lawyers was reading more of the text messages today and saying, no, this is like the real him. I mean, some of him saying, you know, I hope you, I should have killed you. I hope you end up dead, or that kind of thing. There were a lot of text messages like that, like caustic text messages back and forth. So I don't know. I mean, of course, his defense attorneys are just hoping that they don't find liability on anything, and they won't ever get to damages. So it's I'm not sure. Like I said, I think that the photos and everything that I've seen, I am kind of leaning toward they are going to find liability on something. But you know, I don't know. You don't know what they're going to say about damages or anything like that. And then and one thing to keep in mind is it's not a criminal case, so that means the burden of proof is lower on the plaintiff to find liability, because it's a civil case. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt. It's just preponderance of the evidence. So I think if the jury is really looking at that standard, just preponderance of the evidence, they'll find liability. But still, that doesn't really speak to damages at all. And the jury is really a motley crew too. Like, it's some young people. You've got people of color on there. Then there's a couple of older guys on there. They could be like somebody's, you know, grandpa down at the McDonald's with their 99-cent coffee. Like, it's going to be interesting to see all those people kind of get together to discuss this. So is she asking for a certain amount, Viola? I got to go back and look at my notes specifically from closings. I didn't hear like it's a specific amount, but it's definitely like in the millions. But Ron, the plaintiff's lawyer, was talking about like specific amounts and like some math that they could do to get to, you know, are you going to look at, you know, are you going to compensate her for that 1 second a day for every day of her life that she's going to think about this? It kind of got in the weeds on it, but I don't know. And I think asking for damages is one of the hardest parts in these lawsuits, for sure. How do you come up with that? And I wasn't all that impressed with the damages request. The best one I ever saw was the damages request, just how smooth they did it and how the lawyer asked for it. And was in the Vanessa Bryant case. The Kobe Bryant's widow sued over the LA fire officials, LA County Fire Department being a bunch of sickos and passing around photos of the dead bodies and everything. And that was like the best trial I've ever seen. The lawyers on it were really, really good. And the defense was terrible. Their defense was basically just perjury. But the damages request on that I thought was really skillful. And I kind of compare everything to that one. And this one wasn't quite as good. And another thing, you can never really judge a damages request until the jury comes back with the damages amount. So, if they award $25 million, it was an excellent damages request. If they award $25,000, it wasn't good. But I think if they find liability, it'll definitely be more than that. But and she does have medical bills. There was some stuff about her teeth, and then she has therapist bills, that kind of thing. So there is some stuff that they can go off of for compensatory damages. But yeah, I see your point. Folks should keep things professional. Sleeping with them starts to blur the lines. Totally. But then just their whole agreement from the very beginning is like not your typical like professional agreement. I mean, a live-in assistant, I mean, maybe that's pretty common, but it just seems like in the rap world, I mean, they're all hanging out, blunt rolling. I swear they talked about weed like every 5 minutes in this trial. It was like, wow. I mean, it was just all about, smoking blunts and hanging out all the time. And I don't know. It just seemed like the very nature of her job, hiring somebody as a live-in blunt roller, and their only pay is they just get to live there for free. It's like, I'm not sure if that's actually like a professional working relationship, but we'll see. But it was an interesting trial for sure. I appreciate the judge, Mark Epstein, letting us use laptops in there. He's pretty chill. So, I mean, it's like better than working from home. You can just go out there and sit and use the internet and listen to the trial and work on other stuff. So I got a lot of stuff done out there, but it was emotional though. And I saw, because in the very beginning, I mean, he's going in and out, and I was kind of making some jokes with him about because they talk about weed so much, and the deputies were talking about how he always smells like it when he walks in. So, and it was pretty obvious he was spending his lunch, or at least during the breaks, he'll go out to this SUV and smoke out. So I said something to him about it, and then when you actually over the weekend, I went into all the testimony and put this article together for my Substack. And I'm like, wow, this is a really fucked up case. And then you think about the fact that he has a judgment against him from another jury 2 years ago in a case from another woman. And then after this, there's another lawsuit from actually West Coast trial lawyers. Another ex-girlfriend or something is suing him. So I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It's just like it's a serious case, I want to make sure people make sure I convey that. It's not just about weed and Big Bird tweets. There was one tweet. It's just the stuff on Twitter that takes off. It was a text that she'd sent him, because of course his lawyers are trying to highlight, just show that she's like a scorned ex-girlfriend or toxic relationship gone out the wayside. So they brought up her text messages to him about other women, and one was talking to him about, why are you hanging out with this Big Bird looking bitch? And just in the courtroom, hearing that phrase Big Bird looking bitch was funny. But I mean, you can focus on funny little details like that, but I like to do these big dives for the website, the legalaffairsandtrials.com, because this really gets into the story. And like I said, it's actually a pretty fucked up story. We'll see what the jury does. But again, yeah, he's not charged with a crime, but he's scheduled for another trial in a similar lawsuit from a former girlfriend who claims years of abuse. And then in 2023, a jury ordered him to pay a woman $471,900, which includes $236,000 in punitive damages, and another assault and unlawful imprisonment lawsuit. False imprisonment maybe is the actual civil charge, but so I did see a lot of his testimony. He testified twice. First, her lawyers called him as an adverse witness, last Thursday. I remember it was the day of the Dodgers home opener. I missed that one, but he was back on the stand the next week. He was called as a defense witness. So his lawyers questioned him, and then the woman's lawyer did cross. And then there was redirect and recross. And I saw, I think, all of that. And I've got the notes and some quotes on that in the story. I see you asking, Viola, is she asking for a certain amount? I haven't heard a specific amount. I think the lawsuit was filed for like 5 million, but I didn't hear that. I don't know if I heard that specific amount in closings. I'd have to go through my notes, but her lawyer was going on doing various figures they could do and that kind of thing. But I'll get back to you on that. But we'll see what they get. But they talked about going to Atlanta for Black Entertainment Television, the BET Awards, going on the Breakfast Club show. And these are his lawyers. These are Soulja Boy's lawyers. Ricky Ives, the guy in the middle, is kind of like a legend in LA. He's been around for a really long time and is pretty well established. Off the top of my head, I can't think of other big cases that he's done, but he's been around for a long time. He has his own firm, and that's their paralegal. And then I don't know how to pronounce this guy's first name, but that's the associate. He's a younger lawyer. He's been a lawyer for like 5 or 6 years, I think, or something, but he's working with Ricky. And some of this stuff, I'm just not sure how good ways. And I have calling Soulja Boy by his legal last name in here. Way, I'm not sure how good his defense is, because he comes across as a real prick in these text messages. And there's a deposition video where he's talking about how, I said I loved her, but it's like you say you love a dog, but you're not in love with a dog. And just his attitude and the way he's saying it, it's like he comes across as, a misogynistic abuser for sure in the video. So his lawyers are kind of like aware of that, and they're trying to talk to him about, because remember, his defense is that they just were basically boyfriend and girlfriend and had an intimate relationship and everything was great and he never abused her and they just had fun and smoked weed all the time. So his lawyers are asking him about, trying to explain why he was acting like such a dick in these deposition videos. And one is asking him about like if you were you expressing your emotions well. Oh, here's the deposition. This is Ivy. He says, "How are you feeling at this deposition?" And Soulja Boy says, I was feeling hurt. It was definitely a lot being accused of all these things. I was going through pain, but I just wasn't trying to show that. And I'm like, I'm not sure how genuine it came across on the witness stand, and like the thing he said about, he's trying to act like they just had a kind of a normal toxic relationship, boyfriend and girlfriend, and that, she hurt him too. And so one of the things he brought up was that she wasn't around on 420, that 420 was a big deal for them because it's a weed holiday, and that they always talked about it. And then she wasn't around, so he felt hurt and sad and that kind of thing. And, that kind of led to their breakup and them not being around. I'm like, is that believable? I don't know. Well, we'll see. Like I said, they're going to start deliberating tomorrow morning, but it will be interesting. These are a couple of her lawyers. That's Ron. And actually, if you guys follow some of my other coverage, Ron represents Emilio Garcia, who's suing Megan Thee Stallion for all that that other lawsuit that's in Southern District of New York. But it's kind of fun to see him in action with his lawyer buddies from West Coast Trial Lawyers. And there's Soulja Boy walking in. He's worn eyeglasses the entire time. And Ron brought up in his closing today that he doesn't have prescription eyeglasses. They're like basically just fake glasses that he's wearing as he for like show in the trial and stuff. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But yeah, so I'm still getting punished by this algorithm. I think we were up to like 20 or something. I gotta revamp my approach to YouTube, and maybe I gotta start making more videos up front and maybe not do the lives. But anyway, I thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you guys later for sure. Please hit the like button, subscribe. Shout out to the playback crew. I'll try to get more consistent in my lives, but please give me some love to get me back in the algorithm, guys. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys later.